the significance of making salah upon the Prophet ﷺ every Friday night and during the day of Friday. So, sallallahu ala Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Inshallah, we are continuing our journey with Madarij al-Salikin, with the levels of the seekers, or the stations of the seekers, which is the book of Imam Ibn al-Qayyim. And as we mentioned that, inshallah, we are starting from now till Ramadan, we are starting to understand the significance of Al-Fatiha, the significance of Surah Al-Fatiha. And there are many ways for us to look at Surah Al-Fatiha. And as we mentioned earlier, that the book is detailing more than 100 stations between إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. Only between إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ, oh Allah, we worship you, and إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ, and oh Allah, we depend on you. There are 100 levels of Iman, levels of faith. So today, we are taking holistically Al-Fatiha from the perspective of curing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in the Holy Quran, يا أيها الناس قد جاءتكم موعظة من ربكم وشفاء لما في الصدور وهدى ورحمة للمؤمنين. Oh mankind, we have revealed to you what? موعظة من ربكم, advice from your Lord, وشفاء لما في الصدور, and it's cure to everything that is in the chest. وهدى ورحمة للمؤمنين, and guidance and mercy only to the believers. So that verse in Surah Yunus, it started with addressing humanity, but then it then moved on to narrow it down to only talk about hudan wa rahmatun lil mu'mineen. So today we are looking at that facet or that angle of curing from Al-Fatiha. And if you look at how Al-Fatiha cures, we need to understand curing from what? Curing from what type of diseases? So Imam Ibn al-Qayyim here talks about shifa al-qulub wa shifa al-abdan. So curing of hearts and curing of bodies. It makes sense, right? You as a human being, you are two components. You are the component of the heart and the soul, and the component of the body. And both of them combined form you as a human being. So here we are talking about the cure of the hearts and the cure of the bodies. And we will talk significantly about the cure of the hearts. So Imam Ibn al-Qayyim started to say that مدار اعتلال القلوب وأسقامها على أصلين فساد العلم وفساد القصد. So if you look at all the sources, all the origins of all of the diseases of the heart, you will find that they are literally centering around two main problems or two main diseases. فساد العلم, that your knowledge itself is distorted. And here we are talking about the knowledge of La ilaha illallah. فَعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لِذَنْبِكَ. So your knowledge of the entire deen is distorted. You are misguided because your knowledge is wrong to start with. And فَسَادُ الْقَصْدِ. فَسَادُ الْقَصْدِ means your direction is wrong. Maybe you have your knowledge. However, your direction itself is wrong. And an example is that وَاتْلُ عَلَيْهِمْ نَبَأَ الَّذِي آتَيْنَاهُ آيَاتِنَا فَانْسَلَخَ مِنْهَا فَأَتْبَعَهُ الشَّيْطَانُ فَكَانَ مِنَ الْغَاوِينَ. So there is this example of that person who was on knowledge. He did have knowledge from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, فَانْسَلَخَ مِنْهَا, like he did distill himself from this knowledge. فَأَتْبَعَهُ الشَّيْطَانُ فَكَانَ مِنَ الْغَاوِينَ. So he is now followed by shaitan. He is in the company of shaitan, and he became among those who went astray. So this means that there are groups of people who would have knowledge, however, their direction, their intention is wrong. So this means that they are not deploying this knowledge in the right direction. They are not leveraging, building on this knowledge to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So here we are talking about these two types. Are the two types clear? So we are talking about fasadul ilm wa fasadul qasd. Now, Imam Ibn al-Qayyim went forward to say that as a consequence of these two origins, there are two types of diseases. Two types of diseases or two types of consequences. here الضلال والغضب. So فالضلال نتيجة فساد العلم والغضب نتيجة فساد القصد. So الضلال, that you go astray, it's because of the fact that predominantly that you don't have knowledge to start with. Obviously, you can go astray because you have knowledge, but you are not using it here. But here, if he is talking about الضلال, going astray, it's because of the lack of knowledge to start with. And al-ghadab, how about anger? Anger is because of the lack of the direction. And actually, that's something that I wanted to stop at, which is, why do we get angry? And I went ahead and checked the tafsir and checked what are the tafsir are talking about when it comes to anger, and why anger is because of fasadul qasd. So if you look at anger, why would you get angry? You will get angry إذا كان الهدف غير صحيح. So for example, you are seeking something, and that something is to please you, not to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you are looking for manfa'ah, you are looking for some sort of a benefit. That benefit is a worldly benefit. That's for you, to please you, right? So if you don't get it, so you will get angry. So was this anger for the sake of Allah or for the sake of your soul? For the sake of your soul. So that's one example. The other example is that you are actually angry because of al-hawa. So it's not only that you are following your desires, but you are literally driven by the desires. So it's not that your direction is wrong, but your whole intention is wrong because of the fact that أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ وأضله الله على علم وختم على سمعه وقلبه وجعل على بصره غشاوة فما يهديه من بعد الله. Haven't you seen that person who has taken his desires as his Lord? So he's elevated his desires to become his Lord. وأضله الله على علم. Here we come again, another example. And Allah did misguide him, although he did have knowledge. وختم على سمعه وقلبه. And Allah has put a seal on his hearing, so he can't hear, and his heart, may Allah protect us all, so he can't feel, so he can't see, he can't hear, he can't feel. وَجَعَلَ عَلَى بَصَرِهِ غِشَاوَةً. And even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put a veil in front of his sight, so he can't see. He can't see the truth. He can hear the truth if you tell him the truth, and he can feel it even if he hears it. فَمَا يَهْدِيهِ مِن بَعْدِ اللَّهِ. So who is that person who can guide him after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did misguide him? So you see here, all of this is because of fasad al-qasd, because your intention, your direction itself is wrong. Now let's understand, how is Al-Fatiha curing this? When you say اهدنا الصراط المستقيم every day, you are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for cure from dalal. And as Ibn al-Qayyim says here, dalal is actually the most dangerous disease that you can have. So when you are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala multiple times during the day for Allah to guide you the straight path, you are naturally asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to cure you from that very significant disease of misguidance. But then let's dig a bit deeper. Before even asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, let's go for إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. How is إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين fixing that فساد القصد? How is إياك نعبد, we worship you, O Allah, وإياك نستعين, and we depend on you, O Allah, how is it fixing the bad direction, like that ill-intentioned direction, the direction that is seeking some like deity other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? First and foremost, Ibn al-Qayyim here is saying that what are the examples of those people that are not following إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين? Number one, al-mushrikeen, those who are associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number two, those who are muttabi' al-shahwat, as we mentioned, those who are following their own desires. And number three, ashab al-riyasat, those who are following their arrogance, their ego. Because if you are to follow your ego, then you are definitely not following Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because ego is against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you have your ego as the one that you are following, then definitely you are not 100% applying إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ. You are not only worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are, وَالْعَيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, worshipping your own ego. And actually, Ibn al-Qayyim here has given a very interesting example for إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ, and like those who are going in contrary with إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ. Look at how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah An-Nur did describe a group of people. وَإِذَا دُعُوا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ لِيَحْكُمَ بَيْنَهُمْ إِذَا فَرِيقٌ مِّنْهُمْ مُعْرِضُونَ وَإِن يَكُن لَّهُمُ الْحَقُّ يَأْتُوا إِلَيْهِ مُذْعِنِينَ. Those people that whenever they are called to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger to judge amongst them, they are not actually liking this. However, if they know, so they would object taking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger as judges in any of their matters. But if they know that that judgment will lead to something in their favor, they will follow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger. And Allah is criticizing them, saying, أَفِي قُلُوبِهِم مَرَضٌ. Do these people have a disease in their heart? So they have a problem with Allah and His Messenger guiding, like governing, and Allah and His Messenger judging. أَمِرْتَابُوا. Or they have a suspicion, they have a doubt that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger, whenever they are to judge, they will not judge in fair and in a just manner. أَمْ يَخَافُونَ أَنْ يَحِيفَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ وَرَسُولُهُ. Or they are worried that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger will go against them, will be oppressive against them. So what is their problem, these people? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is clearly detailing to us that these are the hypocrites. May Allah protect us all. So now, Ibn al-Qayyim, to come straight to cut to the chase, as they say, Ibn al-Qayyim is telling us that in order for you to apply إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ, there are 6 conditions. And actually, I would like to really spend some quality time going through these 6 conditions. So, you can't actually achieve the cure from Al-Fatiha except عبودية لله لا غيره. That you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you worship no one but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's number 1. Number 2, بأمره وشرعه. That you are following the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. His way, Allah's way, all the time. 24/7, you are following Allah's way. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that we know that we need to do something to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like we are ordered to do something to please Allah, then we do it. If we are ordered to stay away from something to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we do it. So you are following the footsteps of the Prophet 100%. So you are not doing it based on your own ahwa. La bil hawa. So that's number 3. So you are not following Allah with your own desires. اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, relating to the Prophet ﷺ, and they were saying that this is the last verse that was revealed to the Prophet ﷺ, اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم. Today I perfected your religion. وأتممت عليكم نعمتي, and I perfected my mercy upon you. ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا. And I'm pleased with Islam as your religion as it stands. As it stands. So there is no room for bid'ah, there is no room for innovation in Islam. So you are not following Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you are not to be cured with Al-Fatiha by following your own desires. So that's number 3. And the 4th one, لا بآراء الرجال وأوضاعهم ورسومهم وأفكارهم. This is critical. So you are not following the opinion of people, regardless of who we are talking about. Which means, yes, we have scholars. Yes, we have people that we know that are knowledgeable of the deen. But everyone can be mistaken. So you cannot blindly follow someone. You always need to follow the truth. And if this truth is actually against what your sheikh is saying, then you need to follow it. Or in other words, if you are following a sheikh and you realize, and you, not only yourself, but there is a consensus that there is one thing that is off for this sheikh, for whatever it is, then you need to be cognizant to follow Allah and His Messenger. يا أيها الذين آمنوا أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول وأولي الأمر منكم. So, all you who believe, obey Allah and obey His Messenger, and those who are in charge amongst you. And these are the rulers and the scholars. Because they, and like Allah didn't say, وَأَطِيعُوا. Allah said, وَأُولِي الْأَمْرِ مِنْكُمْ. And follow those who are in charge amongst you, and it's ma'tufa, which means there is no separate order to follow أُولِي الْأَمْرِ مِنْكُمْ for a reason. Because for whatever like they are ordering you to do, it cannot negate, it cannot actually contradict whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger are ordering you to do. And وَالْإِسْتِعَانَةَ عَلَى عَبُودِيَّتِهِ بِهِ. So you cannot take any path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ. Because before that He said that فَسَادَ الْقَصْدِ may be that yes, you are going to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but you are going to follow, you are following something else to go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'll give you a very important example, or like very interesting example, very obvious example. Those who are back home or even here, they will go and they are seeking the pleasure of Allah by going to make, for example, dua to al-qubur. That's completely wrong. And this is completely against Allah and His Sunnah, and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So you cannot follow Allah except with the path that Allah has detailed for all of us. And finally, لا بنفس العبد وقوته وحوله ولا بغيره. Subhanallah, you can't follow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with His path except if Allah would give you the strength. So you cannot say that, oh, I reached this level where, alhamdulillah, I'm strong enough, so I don't need Allah anymore. I know the path of Allah, so I'm going to follow it. And I know I'm able to like really get the guidance, draw the guidance from the Quran. So alhamdulillah, I'm good. I'm at that stage where I don't need Allah's guidance to continue to guide me. No. وَاعْبُدْ رَبَّكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكَ الْيَقِينُ. And worship your Lord till certainty comes to you. And subhanallah, all of us, we are at this stage where al-iman yazid wa yanqus. That's what the Prophet ﷺ told us, that your faith increases and decreases. You are in a continuous battle against yourself. You are in a continuous battle against your number one enemy, which is shaitan. You are always striving to elevate yourself, to uplift yourself. وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا فَعَلُوا فَاحِشَةً أَوْ ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُم. What did they do? Those who are, whenever they are committing a severe mistake or they are oppressing themselves, ذَكَرُوا اللَّهِ. They immediately shall remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَاسْتَغْفَرُوا لِذُنُوبِهِمْ. So what is the immediate consequence? They shall ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. وَمَنْ يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. And who can forgive sins but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? وَلَمْ يُصِرُّوا عَلَى مَا فَعَلُوا وَهُمْ يَعْلَمُونَ. And they don't insist on whatever they are doing while they know that they are on the path of disobedience. May Allah protect us all. So, these are the 6 elements that are allowing us to treat Al-Fatiha as Ash-Shafiyah, the curing. So again, they are worshipping Allah, no one but Him, with His orders and His shara, with the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not with your own desires, not with the opinions of men, not seeking the actual strength and support from anyone but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and obviously not depending on yourself. And subhanallah, I will close with this. Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, you know, who was the Sheikh of Ibn al-Qayyim? We mentioned who is the Sheikh of Ibn al-Qayyim? Ibn Taymiyyah, Sheikh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, right? So Imam Ibn al-Qayyim is telling us, like I used to hear Sheikh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah used to say, and actually this is an amazing saying, I want you to remember it. يقول إياك نعبد تدفع الرياء وإياك نستعين تدفع الكبرياء. Very short and concise. إياك نعبد is against what? Against رياء. What is رياء? Huh? What is رياء? To show off, right? And وإياك نستعين تدفع what? الكبرياء. What is كبرياء? Arrogance. So You cannot be showing off while like that. It contradicts, it negates with what? With إياك نعبد. Why would you want to please people? If you are worshiping Allah alone, why would you want to please anyone else? Why do you want people to see you? Why do you want people to say, oh, mashallah, this is an amazing talk, or this is an amazing action, or this is an amazing act of obedience, or whatever it is, or look at him, mashallah, look. No, you don't need that. That's not for whom you are trying to please. You are pleasing who? You are pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدْ is against riya, against showing off. وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ is against arrogance. Because if you have ego, you can be 100% sure that you need to depend on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on it 24/7. That you cannot achieve success in this life but through depending on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why, to summarize, Ibn al-Qayyim is bringing us his points with the points of Ibn Taymiyyah. And actually, this is an amazing passage. فَإِذَا عُوفِيَ مِنْ مَرَضِ الرِّيَاءِ بِإِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ. So if he is protected from the show-off disease with إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ. وَمِنْ مَرَضِ الْكِبْرِيَاءِ وَالْعُجْبِ بِإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. And from the disease of arrogance and being happy, being content with his own self, with إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. And وَمِنْ مَرَضِ الضَّلَالِ وَالْجَهْلِ بِهْدِنَا الصِّرَاطَ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ. And with إِهْدِنَا الصِّرَاطَ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ, you are protected with illiteracy, from arrogance. So, عُوفِيَ مِنْ أَمْرَاضِهِ وَسُقُومِهِ. He shall be cured from all of his diseases. And وَكَانَ مِنَ الْمُنْعَمِ عَلَيْهِمْ غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَهُمْ أَهْلُ فَسَادِ الْقَصْدِ الذين عرفوا الحق وعدلوا عنه والضالين وهم أهل فساد العلم الذين جهلوا الحق ولم يعرفوه. لا إله إلا الله. So he shall be among those that Allah did bestow his mercy upon, not among al-maghdubi alayhim. And here he is linking al-maghdubi alayhim to everything that we have mentioned so far. Al-maghdubi alayhim, those who did know the truth, however, they are not following it, so they are ahlu fasad al-qasd, those whose intention is wrong. Doesn't mean that they don't have knowledge. Wala dhalin, and those who went astray, those who are having fasadul ilm, those who are having the ill knowledge to start with. And obviously there are other interpretations of غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين, and you know this, and like everyone knows this. However, the point here is Al-Fatiha is the curing. Al-Fatiha is the one that can cure you from the diseases of the heart. Al-Fatiha, and not only the entire Al-Fatiha, just إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ اهْدِنَا الصِّرَاطَ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be among those people that draw that benefit from Al-Fatiha. We ask Allah to be among those people who are Ahlul Fatiha. May Allah make us among those people that will meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just saying, oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we did practice Al-Fatiha. We did live Al-Fatiha. We did adore Al-Fatiha. Our life was abided by Al-Fatiha. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to resurrect us with the Prophet ﷺ in جنة الفردوس بغير حساب ولا عذاب. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم وجزاكم الله خيرا.